Hi guys, Squishybee here. Today is August 2nd, 2022. Welcome to this week's Bible reading. This week we're going to be doing Matthew chapter 23. So let's just start with a quick prayer first. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the opportunity for us to come together and do these Bible readings. I pray that you please bless your word and bless those that are listening. And help us to have wisdom for what it is that we're reading today. And help us to block out any distractions and just focus on your word right now. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, verse 1. Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore, whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries, and enlarge the borders of their garments, and love the uppermost rooms at feasts, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But be not ye called Rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren. And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. Therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, ye make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. Woe unto you, ye blind guides, which say, Whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing. But whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. Ye fools and blind! For whether is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifieth the gold? And whosoever shall swear by the altar, it is nothing. But whosoever sweareth by the gift that is upon it, he is guilty. Ye fools and blind! For whether is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifieth the gift? Whoso therefore shall swear by the altar sweareth by it, and by all things thereon. And whoso shall swear by the temple sweareth by it, and by him that dwelleth therein. And he that shall swear by heaven sweareth by the thrones of God, and by him that sitteth thereon. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone. Ye blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel! Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto white sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and are of all uncleanness. Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! Because ye build the tombs of the prophets, and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous, and say, If we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Wherefore, ye be witnesses unto yourselves, that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets, and wise men, and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them ye shall scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous bloodshed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets, and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth, till ye shall say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. And that's it. Good job, guys. Another chapter done. Man, that was some chapter. That was Jesus going off on the Pharisees. And he does that a lot, doesn't he? The Pharisees are... I realize that this is something from back in the day that Jesus was around. The technical Pharisees and Sadducees are no longer around, but the spirit of the Pharisees is still around, right? I would say that we all kind of have tendencies to have a little Pharisee in us when we look at other people and point out their flaws, but we have these flaws ourselves. I say this myself included because we all do this, right? We're all sinners. And that's one of those really common things to men. It's just what we do. And so even though Jesus came to the lost sheep of Israel, he came to them first, and then he later sent Paul to deal with the rest of the world, the Gentiles. There's still things that we can learn, I think, from the chapters like this, because it's a lot of common traits that people have. And these guys were just examples to the rest of us, I think. And there's some important things that were in this chapter, even though it seems like, man, I would hate to be them, having Jesus tell you to your face that you're a hypocrite. But, we're all hypocrites. And so I'm sure that everything in the Bible, no matter who it's written to, even though there's different dispensations, and yes, we are supposed to rightly divide, there's a lot of stuff that is just example to the rest of us. So I think this is no... this is no exception to that, this chapter. One of the things that I did want to point out, a couple things actually, because there's some things in here that people might not really know what they are. So for one, because a lot of this stuff was like Jewish custom and stuff back then, that a lot of the rest of us who aren't Jews would be like, I don't know what he's talking about here. Like, for example, what the heck is a phylactery, right? So let's look at that first really quick, because that's probably something that a lot of people might not know what that is. It's kind of like a little box that it looks like a little black cube that they put on the top of their heads on the front there, and it's attached to this thing that wraps around their arm, and it's something that they use in prayer, like kind of a list of things. And one of the things that they're talking about here is where these guys do this stuff for show, that they pray in public in order to make it look like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but in reality they were doing a lot of really sketchy stuff, right? Obviously. Jesus points it out all the time in the Bible when he was here, in these red letters. So I think, but we all sometimes do that. And so it's important that we check our hearts when we're praying, that we're doing it for the right reasons. And that's why he tells us to go in private and pray. Not that I don't think that there's a problem with, like, say you're at a restaurant and you're saying grace at the table and there's other people around. There's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. For one, unless you're doing it for the purpose of wanting to look better than other people or but you don't really mean what you're praying, which I doubt that you're doing, but there are people that might be doing that. But for one thing, it's not such a bad idea, I don't think, to be that example. We're the light in the darkness, the city on the hill. And so it might not be a bad thing for people to see people praying, out in public, showing that, hey, we're not afraid to show that we're a Christian, and that's okay, and that it's okay to thank God for your food. You should be doing that anywhere that you are, and it's easy to forget that. I myself, I gotta get better at remembering to do that every time. And frequently I will start eating and be like, oh, I forgot, and then start saying grace after I've already started to eat. I'm just a forgetful I'm getting worse with being forgetful. It's kind of like that with everything as I get older, and since the strokes and everything. But we also, we're supposed to be that example. And so there's a difference between wanting people to be like, hey, there's something good about being a Christian, that you're doing it for the good reason of being an example, being a good representative of Christ. But that's not the same thing as what these guys were doing. They were not really doing what they were supposed to be doing. And they didn't mean it when they were praying. They obviously didn't, because they were doing really horrible things. So that's just something that I thought I would point out so you could see what that was. And also, when he's talking about them basically leading people to hell, and that's something that we can see going on around us all the time. This, to me, was a really good example that nothing changes, right? There's nothing new under the sun. They were doing it back then, and people are doing it now, where people that don't want to go to heaven, there's these people that are openly worshiping Lucifer, or there is the occasional atheist. But honestly, I think a lot of them pretend to be atheists, but in reality, they worship Satan. But regardless, either one, they don't want you to go to heaven either. They want, it's kind of that misery loves company. And so this is where they're talking about that in here, where they want other people, here, like in 13, where it says, but woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. He says that throughout the whole thing. For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men, for ye neither go in yourselves. They don't want to go to heaven. Neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. So they're trying to stop you from going to heaven too. And so you can see this getting worse and worse. It's that Antichrist spirit going on around us. And I'm going to be doing a video on someone that is, one of the most Antichrist examples that, I would not be surprised if this guy ends up being the Antichrist. That is talking about how you have no more free will, and that they're going to be using this technology to stop you from believing in God. And it is nuts, the stuff that this guy is saying. So check back for when I get that one done. I'm still doing some research on that, but there's this this guy that is doing that, and this just comes to mind. It's just interesting because that I had just been researching this, and then this scripture talks about that very thing, about where they're not only they know they're not going to heaven, but they don't want to let anyone else in there either. They don't want anyone to believe, and that's all part of the Antichrist spirit that the Bible warns us that while there is the main Antichrist, there are many Antichrists already in the world, and Jesus warned of that as well. So, and then the other thing that I wanted to give you was the verse of the week, which I mentioned this last week actually. Verse 37, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. To me, this is an important verse because it shows you how God is a parent, and he, just like parents would look at their children and be like, you see that they're rebelling and doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and you know that this is going to lead to some no good, and you've lived through mistakes and learned from them and everything. And so you know how frustrating it is. You love your kids and you want to just protect them. You don't want them going out and getting into trouble, and there's so many terrible things out there for them to get into, and you just want to protect them, but they won't listen. This is, imagine how much worse it is for God, because God isn't someone like us where we're doing this because we've learned from our mistakes and we don't want the kids to make the mistakes. But God sees all. It's not that he's made mistakes in any way. He just knows everything. He knows the future. He knows what's already happened from the beginning of the whole world, and the beginning of time to the end of time, okay, for eternity. He knows everything. So imagine how much harder it must be for him, and how much he wants them to do this. He knows that the horrible things that await them when they make these terrible decisions. And us, when we make these mistakes, even as a Christian, even though you're not going to hell, he knows that the things that we do are going to cause us problems in this life, right? Or maybe problems for other people. And we don't know, we may not realize what we're doing. And that's why we have to just trust that he knows what he's doing. Because, a lot of the times we may get mad, like, I don't understand why I can't do this one thing. Well, it's because we don't know. That thing may cause some unknown thing that only he knows and we don't. And I'm sure that most of us can look back on our past and be like, oh, that's why he didn't want me doing that. Because then we now can look back and see the problems that it caused. Sometimes it's bad enough and it's just something that's affected your life. But it's so much worse when you look back and you realize this is what I did, this many years ago, it affected this person, and I never even realized this until years later when they told me how much it changed their life and caused them all of these problems because of something that you said or did. You may not have even realized it at the time, but how it affected somebody forever. Maybe even someone that won't get saved because they then turn from God because of something that we say. So we have to be really careful and choose our words very wisely and say very little. That's why the Bible tells us to just, speak very little. And when you do, it should be, from the Holy Spirit. And that's something that I'm really bad about. Because that's just my personality, that I tend to say what I think before thinking. That you really, we're not supposed to do that. So that's one of my weaknesses that I have to really be careful with. And I'm sure that, like all weaknesses, Satan will push you to do things on top of that. He'll get you to trap you up in these weaknesses that we have, and so that he can then say, see, I knew she would do that. I knew he would do that. And point it out to God, because he is the accuser. He goes to God every day, all day long, and accuses the brethren, and is like, did you see what this person did? And fortunately, for those of us who believe, it holds no bearing on our case, because God has wiped the slate clean. He has ripped those pages out of the book of life. And, when he goes to God, I imagine that God is like, I don't recall what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't see this written here that this person has done this, because Jesus, all he sees is Jesus. Because we are the righteousness of Jesus. Once we believe Jesus is, our record is replaced with his record. And so I would imagine when he goes to God to accuse us, that that's the same as accusing Jesus. So we're covered under the blood from the cross and what Jesus did at the cross. So you don't want to get too caught up in letting Satan bash you to death with your sins and your weaknesses. But we definitely want to learn from them, and try to always be using the example of Jesus. And that's why it's important to read these things, so that we know what Jesus thought was okay and what he thought wasn't okay. Whether he's speaking to us or not, the general gist is this is good, this is bad. And so for people that think you should just ignore all the hyper dispensationalists that believe that you shouldn't pay attention to any of the stuff that is not directly written by the Apostle Paul, that they're missing out. They're missing out on some really good nuggets in here that are the thoughts of Christ, things that he really felt was important. So anyway, I hope that is a help to somebody out there. A couple of main things: we definitely want to be humble. It talks about that in here. We should always be humble. It says, whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. So that's a really good trait, a very common thing throughout the Bible. And another thing that we don't want to brush over here is the fact that it says, and call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. And who is it that's doing that to this day? It is the Catholics. They're always calling each other Father, and having all of these other people call them Father. So that's a no-no. Clearly it says that right here. And so that's one of those man-made traditions, very similar to what the Sadducees were doing. So again, even though he's talking to talking about the Pharisees here, this is clearly a wink to the future for our time, because that's what's happening today. And also there is a prophecy in here that we don't want to skip over, that Jesus said that comes true, because he talks about how the Sadducees will Here, look at 34. It says, "Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city." He's talking about what happens in the near future after he dies and is resurrected and ascends. Then the apostles go out and they go do their thing, right? And one of the things that happens is that they go from town to town, just like he says here. And these Pharisees, they whip them, which is the scourging. Okay, scourging is a horrible version of whipping, where they put jagged, terrible, sharp things on each one of the little whip things, and so that when they whip them, it rips out a big chunk of their flesh with it. And and then they would stone them, and they would kill them, or they would shoo them out of town. So this was a prophecy that ends up coming true later, as we see in the book of Acts and some of the other books where the apostles were going about, the Apostle Paul and Barnabas and Peter and everybody. They deal with these people again. So again and again and again, Jesus sends different people, just like God sent people in the Old Testament, and they were constantly treating these prophets horribly. So they had chance after chance after chance, and they just kept, they were not interested. So anyway, I guess that's pretty much the main gist of what I wanted to point out. I think that was it. The only other thing was there was a word that was used here that you might not know. If I can find it again. Oh yeah, proselyte. When they're talking about that, they're basically convincing people of something that isn't true. They're talking about, they're going to convert people to a religion from another group to their group. So anyone that they were trying to get them to be Christian during the time when the apostles were going, then they would be like, no, don't go listen to them, and they would get them to come back to the old law and stuff. And people are still doing that today. Even people that are calling themselves Christian, they still keep wanting to go back under the bondage of the law. And that is not, we're not part of that anymore. Even though we want to follow the basic, the rules of what are good and what is pure and what is righteous, we obviously want to try to do those things. We are not under the bondage of the law anymore. We are saved by grace, which is a gift from Jesus and what He has done for us that saves us. But there are still people that keep wanting to go back under the old law, and by doing so, they're dragging people with them. Right? It says, "Ye make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves." So the other thing that they mention here is that they're going to receive the greater damnation, which is one of those things, again, that seems like there's levels of damnation. Because if they're saying the greater damnation, there has to be a lesser damnation, right? So that's one of those things where it makes you go, what is really going on there in hell? Is there different types of punishments going on there, different levels? Because it does point that out a few times, and this is one of them. And it's referred to here where they were talking about hypocrisy and the Pharisees, devouring widows' houses, and then it says, "And for a pretense, make long prayer." Now, that's just saying, when they say pretense, they're just saying fakery. You're pretending just for show. The long prayer. And it says, therefore, ye shall receive the greater damnation. So that's another thing that we don't want to let slide by there. That's something you want to pay attention to, that theme that goes on there. And I don't know. Hopefully we will never find out. I don't know who's listening right now, but you don't want to find out what levels of hell there is or what's going on there. But I would imagine if you're listening, that you're not going to have to worry about that, because if you believe, you won't have to worry about that. If you are a believer in what Jesus did for you on the cross, and you've accepted that gift, you've decided that, and you've called on the name of the Lord. So, but for those who do not believe, we got to try to get through to them the best we can so that they don't have to deal with that, because I can only imagine. I don't even want to know what's going on down there in the middle of the earth and in this horrible place called hell. So anyway, I guess that does it for this week, and I will be back again next week with chapter 24, and I will try to get back on with that other video I was talking about. I'm still working on that, and check back for that, because I found out some crazy stuff. Hopefully I can get it on YouTube and not get banned. That's the problem. I find so much stuff I want to tell everybody, but I know that if I put it on there, it's going to get removed, and or possibly get me a strike where I can't come on and do these, and I don't want to mess up the Bible readings and the prayer videos and stuff, because I'm talking about stuff that YouTube is just looking for an excuse to get rid of Christians off there. So, but there's so much stuff, man. I wish there was a way I could get you this information so that you knew what was really going on without, because I don't even know if I put the links under my videos, I don't know if they would catch on to that and stop you from, give you a strike for that. I don't know. But if anyone, ever wanted to learn more about that stuff, I will try to say as much as I can without getting a strike, and then I'll leave the links at least to the articles and stuff where you can hear it right out of the people's mouths. But I have read off stuff at other spots. I've actually put news clips where they were actually just showing, it was right off of the actual news clips showing people talking about stuff with the COVID, and it got me a strike, and then I couldn't post for a while because of that. And they're like, medical and misinformation. I'm like, it's you guys saying it. Well, I didn't say anything. All they did was just put a clip of what you were saying. It's nuts. So there's a lot of stuff they don't want people knowing for sure. So I've kind of come to learn a bit of what you can and cannot say. But sometimes they'll just pull stuff off, and I don't know what it is. They don't explain it to you what they're removing it for. So, sometimes I just have to be careful. I don't want to become one of these people that just uses all code words. They can't understand a word the person's saying. That just is annoying to me. So I'd kind of rather not put anything out than to have my entire video full of nonsense words that people have no idea what you are saying. So anyway. Alright guys, I hope you're all doing well, and staying healthy, and until next time guys, I love you, God bless you, and I'll be seeing ya. Bye-bye.